You know, they're selling you all wolf tickets, people. You're eating them right up.
Hey, pussy, are you still there?
I back. Trust me, I back.
But I'm not impressed by your performance.
You'll do nothing. You'll do nothing. Shut your fucking mouth, you'll do nothing. You'll do fucking nothing. Not one of you'll do nothing.
I'll tell you what, bro. You know, I was out there, I was fighting all the hitters, bro. You ain't fought no hitters.
Come on, guys. Normal.
I'm not saying I would fight you. I would kill you.
John, do you think I'm just gonna sit there and let you kill me, John? I mean, really?
No, don't be scared, homie. I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody. The double champ does what the fuck he wants.
I am gonna beat you into the living death. I mean, maybe that's your job, but where I come from, you know, people like that get slapped.
That's fucking illegal.
Next year, you just shook up the world. How's that feel?
Hey, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
Yeah, this is a simulated death match. And you haven't simulated anybody's death yet.
I said it last year. We're not here just to take part. We're here to take over.
What is the game plan going in against him?
The game plan is you go in there, hit him with some good shit, don't get hit, and come home with a pocket full of cash.
Who the fuck is that guy?
Everybody's on steroids. The whole UFC, everybody.
I'm gonna go home tonight. I'm gonna drink a Coors Light. That's a Coors Light because Bud Light won't pay me nothing.
Do you want to be a fighter? That is my question.
Any of you radio personalities think you want smoke? Call me Mr. Chimney. I want smoke.
Yes. What is up? What is up, MCR family? Another daily edition of the show live on YouTube, obviously podcast form, and iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, etc. I'm Matt, the hipster hunter. Man, I cannot wait to talk about these subjects and these topics of the day. Obviously, it is preview day. It is Wednesday. That means we're going to preview and break down all of the weekend's action coming up from Friday to Saturday, Sunday, whatever, you know, all the weekends or weeks fights we're going to break down. And, of course, all of the news today, like Floyd Mayweather and Tenshin Nasukawa being canceled, sort of. I'll be honest here. Like, conspiracy theory Matt right here. I mean, I'm just saying, in no way, shape, or form did Floyd say that the exhibition match was canceled, in my opinion. I'm just saying. He said he never signed a official bout agreement with Tenshin Nasukawa. Doesn't mean he's saying no to an exhibition fight. I'm just throwing it out there. This could still be stunting on a lot of levels, but of course, the most obvious play is this is Japanese MMA/combat sports 101. Get a big name Westerner over here, even for a press conference, and boost your overall presence. It's been happening for decades. Obviously, we're going to get to that in sort of the middle part of the show after we sort of break down the weekend's fights and action, and at least get through all of our boxing topics. That's what I plan to do. I'm going to get through all of the weekend's action for boxing. The boxing news of the day, obviously Mike Garcia, Earl Spence being at AT&T Stadium, allegedly, in Texas. That's going to be a huge one to talk about. Gary from Dallas is seeing in the chat. I really hope, Gary, you can call in 323-870-4051. Press 1 to get in the queue. Definitely want somebody's opinion from the Dallas area about that fight, particularly being in Dallas Cowboy Stadium. As well, obviously, as the UFC Fight Night coming up as well. The Floyd topic will be our transition to that. And, of course, the rest of the MMA topics of the day. Make sure you guys hit that like button, share the show, subscribe. It's been a good day. It's been a good day, yeah. Shout out to Wayne, Gary, Aaron Munoz, Santiago, MB, and Rubisky. I hope everyone is having a great day as well. But let's get to the shits, man, because I'm telling you.
I want smoke.
All of you Tony Bellew fans out there, I want the smoke, okay? A.K.A. Robbie Hearns. I know you're out there busy on your show, whatever. I don't care, okay? We've been talking about Usyk versus Tony Bellew, at least me and him and others, for quite some time. And I feel like this may be the last straw for the haters of Usyk, for the people that have always sort of counted him out. If he beats Tony Bellew, there ain't a damn thing you can say about the champ, you know?
It's bullshit.
It is. It is bullshit, Usyk, the shit they say about you. To be 15-0, undisputed, pound for pound talent, beat every single champion in the division except for maybe, of course, Tony Bellew, who was emeritus status after moving up to fight David Haye at heavyweight. This fight being on DAZN in the U.S., obviously Sky Sports, I believe Sky Sports box office in the U.K. It's going to be interesting, to say the least, this matchup, because, for one, I obviously, if you've been listening to this show for any length of time, you know that I am really high on Usyk. I think he is an extreme talent and perhaps on his way to all-time greatness. I just see that in him, along with some other guys of his sort of generation right now that we see. There's a lot of guys out there that I think we're going to talk about in history as just great boxers all time. Usyk seems to be one of them. However, Tony Bellew, for always being sort of the blue-collar worker in a way, blue-collar boxer in a way, even though he had a lot of hype coming off the Olympics, let's not get that twisted. In the pros, up until probably the Makabu fight, he always seemed to sort of not deliver on the biggest occasions. Obviously, the Donna Stevenson fight being the biggest one. However, obviously, this sort of last chapter of his career, he's turned it around to really, I think, make a legacy out of himself. Again, beating Makabu, that is an accomplishment. That was a great win. Beating David Haye twice, regardless of the asterisk in the first fight, the second fight was clearly dominant in Bellew's favor. He knocked David Haye down numerous times with great combinations, mid combination of David Haye as well. Beautiful stuff from from Tony Bellew in the David Haye fight. So we know Tony Bellew at this point in his career is a legit world-class championship level fighter. And I think if Usyk comes here and beats Tony Bellew, the guy that was sort of the king of the cruiserweight division before we had the Briedis, Gassiev, and Usyk sort of triangle at the top, and of course along with Dorticos, but I think we can all agree that Dorticos just technically is not of those guys' level. So again, Tony Bellew, he has made a great last chapter in his career. If he wins this, obviously, I think he sort of goes down as a Hall of Famer, to be quite honest. I think if you sort of look at, again, the back half of his career is pretty spotless. And again, if he sort of gets the scalps of David Haye and Usyk, and rides off into the sunset, salute to Tony Bellew. However, I don't think that's happening. Not because Tony Bellew is not talented, not because he's not gifted, not because he doesn't have power. He has those things. However, not maybe as much as Oleksandr Usyk, especially in terms of the technique department, or at least a big part of it is patterns, from what I see and just reviewing it. I think Tony Bellew relies so much more off of patterns, predictable patterns, tendencies and behavior than Usyk. Usyk is far more in a way the more erratic, harder to control boxer in the ring. Bellew does certain things constantly. For one, he will always bite the feint to the body. It's something that especially I see from the southpaws. Even the Makabu fight. Makabu even knocked him down, knocking out Tony Bellew with a great left hand. Makabu being southpaw, Usyk being southpaw, something to look at as well. But how that was set up was with the feints to the body. Makabu would obviously feint with the lead hand up and down, and Bellew, in a way to parry it, as you're always taught, was biting on it consistently. And if you just look throughout his career, same with the David Haye fights, etc., he bites on that feint. And Usyk is not only elite when it comes to that lead hand feint out of the southpaw position, but he's perhaps probably the best guy in boxing right now with it. His ability to mix up to the body and the head with that lead hand, both in jabs and in feints, is just hard for a fighter to peg down, along with his amazing lateral movement and footwork. For a guy like Bellew, I don't think he's really faced that combination. David Haye actually has some really good lateral movement, but he doesn't really throw feints. He either throws or he doesn't. He either throws that big overhand right, a big sweeping left hook, or he doesn't throw. He's not really throwing in any sort of feints with his hands, not really working off the jab a lot. Makabu, for his credit, was working feints, was working the jab, but his lateral movement just was not there. You would have to go back probably to the Adonis Stevenson fight, for example, to find a guy that was able to sort of cut the ring off of Tony Bellew, throw the feints to keep him guessing, and be able to land that left hand accordingly. I think Usyk, no matter if he's going backwards or forwards, will, I think, be in control in this fight. I think Tony Bellew's best hope is to catch Usyk on the ropes. Throw massive combinations, hard combinations, because Bellew, to his credit, does throw a lot of good combinations in just his body of work throughout his career. Those really good right hands, really good uppercuts, goes to the body, good left hook to the body as well to sort of add to it. However, again, I think those moments are going to be few and far between with a guy like Usyk. I think he's just going to be set on his game plan and is going to be set on outboxing Tony Bellew. And to be honest, I think he might get Tony Bellew out of there late, but I think he might get him out of there maybe around 10, 11, early, maybe 9, 8. But other than that, I see it obviously being sort of a clear unanimous decision for Oleksandr Usyk. Not because Bellew's not talented, not because he doesn't have power, but just because clearly I don't think he has the game plan to beat Usyk. I don't think his overall sort of career shows that he has the overall I would say sense of game plan, sense of knowing how to set patterns, set traps than Usyk. He just doesn't do that better than him. In my opinion, Bellew does his best work going forward, going backwards, even though he has a really good counter right hand. It's more off of instinct. I don't see him really setting up traps. So, again, if Bellew's coming forward, he has to get him on the ropes. And Usyk is just not going to be there for long periods of time. I don't see it happening. I see this probably being a fun fight for 4 to 5 rounds, and then Usyk sort of taking over from there. If Bellew is not winning clearly in the first sort of 3 or 4 rounds of the fight, he's going to get just dominated, clearly. If it's not competitive, then I don't think Bellew sort of adapts to what Usyk is presenting to him. I think it just gets wider and wider and wider, to be quite honest. What's next for Usyk, God knows. But clearly he is on a path to something. And if Bellew sort of upsets that path, plays spoiler again, because he sort of played spoiler with the David Haye, Anthony Joshua fight. I mean, salute to Tony Bellew, man. Always going to be that guy that's going to be shocking people if he pulls it off. But I think Usyk maybe just is in class above Bellew, and also in his prime, completely healthy. Those are factors we cannot ignore with some of Bellew's wins as of recent. Anthony Crolla on the card as well against Daddy Odon. Ricky Burns on the card as well. Josh Kelly, David Allen, just some guys to sort of pay attention to as well on the undercard if you decide to watch the full event. I'm not going to break down those fights individually. Moving on. The World Boxing Super Series card, I'll be honest, this is kind of trash. Marius Briedis versus Noel Gavor and Krzysztof Glowacki versus Maxim Vlasov. That fight's decent, I guess. But the Marius Briedis Gavor fight, hold on, let me get a soundbite for that. Utter trash. It should be utterly dominant. Briedis should get a knockout within 6 to 7 rounds. Glowacki as well should get a pretty clear win. If not unanimous decision, it should be a knockout within 8 rounds, I would say. But other than that, the card itself, nothing really to be exactly ecstatic about. There are some undefeated prospects on it, but guys are definitely untested and unproven in a lot of ways. But that's about it for that card as well. The Thursday Fantasy Springs ESPN card for Golden Boy, the last Golden Boy ESPN card as Golden Boy makes his transition over to DAZN. Nico Macias versus Jesus Soto Caras. Macias, god damn, this guy is insane. If you have not seen him fight, go watch him fight. He throws 1,000 punches in 7 rounds. The guy has a godly work rate in the ring. I think he is clearly meant to be sort of that fringe top 10 guy. I don't see him really being a guy that becomes a champion. I just don't see it quite yet. I think it's too hittable. I really don't think he has the power behind all that volume at the very top. However, this fight, it should be all action. It should be entertaining. It should show us, how good Nico Macias is against a faded veteran. That's always good to see, especially one that's been nothing but losing in the last 3 or 4 years. And it's a name. I mean, Cross is still a name, let's be honest. And hopefully Makai sort of springboard from this to sort of better options, better fights, better matchups, because he is a all-entertaining, all-action fighter that even though I think he loses to the top guys, he clearly should be put in there, I think, relatively soon, because he's going to just destroy these C-level guys, D-level guys, because he just, to be honest, is just has too much volume for them. He's too mauling for them. Other than that, on this card, Manny Robles the third on it, and Aaron McKenna. Aaron McKenna, a great prospect, I would say. A giant guy for his weight class. Johnny Roberts saying John Jones or the Marley UFC 232. Come on, John Jones. I mean, let's be honest.
Hey, pussy, are you still there?
Come on. And that wasn't directed towards you, Johnny. Directed towards you know who. Double champ himself.
I want smoke!
But digressing, the last boxing topic of the day, Jerry Jones has a site deal in place for the Mike Garcia-Earl Spence fight on March 16th per Lance Pugmire of the LA Times. Look, I don't know what the thought process is for this. I remember Gary came on. That's why I really want Gary to call in for this show. I remember he called in maybe a couple weeks ago and said, like, look, they can sell out any place in Dallas and arguably Texas. I don't know if he meant AT&T Stadium. Because do we honestly think they sell this place out? Now, maybe they have it, structured down to maybe a 45,000, 55,000 seat arena. And I can see them, obviously with very cheap tickets, selling that out. I can see that. But a full 100K? Ooh, and on top of that, this event is pay-per-view. I desperately want to see in PBC, Showtime, their sort of executive rooms, what metrics they're analyzing to determine that A, Earl Spence versus Mike Garcia is a pay-per-view fight, and B, it's a fight that can potentially fill out AT&T Stadium, which is a venue that's never been filled out for a boxing fight in the U.S. as of yet. Again, maybe I'm crazy here. Maybe listeners, Aaron Munoz, Johnny Roberts, Rob Gotti, anyone out there listening, please let me know if I'm crazy here. That this seems odd. Like, this seems a gross sort of overestimation of your product in a way as a company, if you're PBC/Showtime. I mean, again, if they scale it down to a 45, 55, seater, maybe, but 100K, God, I'm very curious about that. Gary has come on with us. Gary, please let me know your opinion about this news. I was shocked about this.
With Mikey Garcia and Earl Spence, or are you talking about Floyd Mayweather now?
I'm not talking about Mayweather. I'm talking about the Mikey Earl. I haven't gotten to.
Okay.
What was that?
I was in the middle of doing stuff, and I heard you wanted me to call in, so I wanted to call in real quick. I was talking about Mikey.
Yes, and Earl at AT&T Stadium. Does it fill out 100,000 seats?
Not even close. Pacquiao fought Margarito and Claudia, but let's compare it to Margarito. It's the Mexican American and Pacquiao, and that did about 50 to 55,000. If it does that, so if it half sells out the arena, it's a ringing success, right? I mean, if it does 55,000 ticket sales, that's a massive success.
Yeah, I would say so.
I can't really see it doing that, because that was in the middle of Pacquiao mania, right? And Margarito, we laugh at Margarito now, but Margarito was a draw. People loved him or hate him. Margarito gave us a fight of the year with Paul Williams. He gave us a fight of the year with Miguel Cotto. There wasn't a boring fight that Margarito was in. So I would say Pacquiao, even in Dallas, is a bigger star than Spence, and Margarito's a bigger draw than Pacquiao. I mean, Margarito's a bigger draw than Mikey, right? So if that only did 55 at Cowboy Stadium or AT&T Stadium, how could this do more than that? You know what I'm saying?
Agreed. I I don't know if, let's say, like, I forget what the name of the arena is the Dallas Mavericks play at, but why isn't that an option? Like, why
American Airlines.
American Airlines.
I thought so too.
Is it booked? Is it booked March 16th? Or isn't basketball out that time? I forget.
No, basketball is still going on. That's the very end of the season. But you could find a weekend where the Mavs are. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could find a weekend. Because they threw around January, then February, then March. You could find a weekend where the Mavs are out of town or off on Saturday night. That's not that tough. Plus, I just bought Mavs tickets for the day before Thanksgiving on StubHub. I saw, and I don't know if you follow basketball. The Mavericks are awful. They were selling tickets for $7. I got courtside seats for $44. So they could just kick the Mavericks out. They're going to put a fight in here that night. The Mavs can go play somewhere else. I thought it would be at the American Airlines Center. I thought that made Mikey Garcia's worked there in the past. I thought that made a lot of sense. But maybe they think it's going to be bigger than I'm expecting. Right? Because American Airlines holds 20,000 plus, and in boxing you can put seats on, on the court, so you could probably get 22,000 in there. Which I think they could sell out. But maybe they think they could do 40 or 50. I don't know.
I don't know what they're thinking. I know Mikey's fought at, I think like he fought at the Alamo Dome once.
He fought all over Texas. He fought the Alamo Dome. He fought in Laredo. He fought all over the state. He's fought everywhere.
Yeah.
He fought in Corpus Christi.
Yeah, but I would just say, like, nothing in terms of metrics to me points to, let's put Spence Garcia on pay-per-view and at AT&T Stadium. Like, that makes zero sense to me in terms of just the economics of the situation.
And it looks good. Do you remember when Tim Bradley fought Devin Alexander in Detroit at the Silverdome?
Yes.
I was at that fight. That's a stadium that holds about 100,000 people. I'm telling you, there are about 6,000 to 8,000 people. But they have like one little section blocked off, and they put a tarp behind so you couldn't see all the empty seats. Now, look, I don't think this is going to do that bad, right? I think it'll do 30,000 probably. But like just looking at that, seating a stadium that holds 100,000, having 70,000 open seats is a bad look. It just looks bad.
It is, and I haven't been at that sort of situation for sports. I've been that for like concerts, like really big concerts. They put it at like a baseball stadium, and they cart off like part of the the stadium to put like the stage on and shit like that. And it just looks bad. Like it doesn't have the same sort of vibe, the same sort of atmosphere as a shrunken down arena that still fits 25,000 people. You can still sell the same amount in terms of gate revenue. And it just feels more intense. The atmosphere is just better than putting 30,000 people in a 100,000 seat stadium where it's all empty. It just, again, I don't understand what the thought process is there for Al Heyman and Steven Espinoza and the whole crew.
Maybe Jerry Jones gave a sweetheart of a deal. I mean, because Spencer's last fight with Jerry Jones was there, and that was an electric atmosphere, right? Like it really was. It was an awesome atmosphere. Spence got the first round knockout. I don't know. Jerry Jones might think that this is going to be huge. I don't know. Yeah.
Jerry Jones is pretty old. I mean, like dementia could be a factor. I don't know. Like it's again. I mean, I would totally understand them even putting this at the practice facility that they did for the Spence fight, like for Ocampo. But make the tickets higher. Like make it more of a high class event in Dallas. But still, it just. There's no way they do even half of a 100,000 seat stadium. I just don't see it happening. For all the fights that almost ended up at this venue to actually potentially sell it out, this is not it.
You could put it at the practice facility, the Star in Frisco. The only problem with that is the Frisco's not in Dallas. It's in Frisco. It's about half hour, 40 minutes north of Dallas. So if you put it there, then you're not really getting, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's out in the suburbs and it's kind of out remotely. It's not like it's in Irving or something right outside that. It's kind of far away. It's kind of out of the way. So you could put it there, but then you're going to lose that Dallas feel. It's not really a Dallas fight at that point. It's like when they have a fight in India or California. Like, do you consider that an LA fight? No, it's different. You know what I'm saying?
I absolutely agree.
If they wanted to, if they're doing it in March, they could put it outside. They could put it at where the Rangers play, Globe Life Stadium. Like, there were so many places they could have put this. To put it there, I mean, maybe they, unless they're going to comp thousands of tickets to make it look full, I don't know what their plan is. Because he sold 12,000 seats his last fight against Ocampo. Now, might be the better dance partner for sure, but do you really think he's going to go from 12 to 50? That would be a big jump. That would be a big step up.
It would be, and I think it, again, obviously there's something that they're looking at that is telling them that this fight is massive. Let's go for it. I don't know what it is. Now, however, to be cynical for a second, I forget whose podcast it was. It might have been Kurt Emhoff of Boxing Esquire. I forget who he had on, but they're talking about like the economics of pay-per-view. And basically how in today's age that these fights, like Mikey versus Earl, for example, they're asking prices so high that they have to sort of rush to these huge site fees from the first person that gives it to them. They have to sort of rush to pay-per-view because that's the only way they can sort of pay these guys the money that they want. I would not be surprised if that's the issue here, where Al Heyman, Steven Espinoza, that whole crew, they don't give two rats' ass about this selling out. All they care about is making sure Mikey and Earl are paid what they're asking. And Jerry Jones is handing them a huge bag of money, and they're going to take it. Regardless of it selling out 100,000, 30,000, they're probably thinking that's not my issue. That's not my problem. That's Jerry Jones' problem. And now, to sort of lay off the cynic in me for a second, I think that's bullshit. Like, that sucks for the consumer. That sucks for the fans. Because that's obviously not a fan-first thought process.
It sucks for the fan, right? It does. But that venue is so big that depending on how much of it they want to open up, they can start selling $10 or $20 tickets just to sell tickets. You know what I'm saying? Just to fill the place up. And now a fan that can't afford $500 seats or $100 seats even can get in to the stadium, watch the fight, and say I was there. So, like, have you ever been in that stadium, Matt? It is massive.
No,
like,
I've never been. I've driven past it. I've never been in it.
So, like, it just depends on, how determined are they to fill that place up. Because if you gave away $10 tickets to sit in the upper bowl, people would buy those because it's like, okay, it's $10, same price. It's cheaper than going to a movie. I'll just go to the game. I'll just go to the fight. They can sell a lot of tickets if they want to do that. They didn't do that for the Pacquiao fight because they didn't have to. But, we'll see how they want to handle that.
Well,
if you were, let's say you were a casual fan, right? The Mavericks are out of the picture. Baseball season hasn't started yet. Football season is over. $10 to go watch Errol Spence fight at Cowboy Stadium. Would you go see it? Like, you might.
Yeah, absolutely. It's don't get me wrong. If they do plan on opening this up to the full 100,000, people can get very cheap tickets, so that's a good thing. However, I know the atmosphere of a 30,000 seater or 30,000 people in a 100,000 seater, if it's all the way open, isn't going to feel right.
No.
But I will say this: I think most consumers, like the average, the casual, like you said, they won't really think about this in any sort of like big, in-depth way. They're going to think, oh, $10 tickets, I'm happy. Like, that's all they're going to worry about. Because, for example, for the Wilder Fury fight here in L.A., the only thing I'm thinking about is the cheapest ticket was over $260. That means I'm not going.
Yeah, I wanted to go to that fight, too. If I could have got reasonable, like, if they would have had $100 tickets, I could get reasonable airline. I would have went out to California for that fight. I have friends out in L.A. Like, I would have went to that fight. But I saw the price of the ticket, and it's like, by the time I get the airline and everything, it's going to cost me like $1,000. I can't do this. But I wanted to go to that fight.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely agree. Gary, I'm going to put you on mute for a second just so I can read off this Floyd topic. I may come back to you after that so you can give off your Usyk Bellew prediction, talk about Floyd, Wilding, all that shit, okay? Thank you, Gary. Again, I'm going to come right back to you. You can always hang up, call back in. It doesn't matter. But I will go back to you. Guaranteed. But let's get to this Floyd shit because Floyd be wildin'. Floyd Mayweather versus Tenshin Nasukawa is seemingly off. And, I mean, with any of this sort of story, I think we have to use words like allegedly, seemingly, maybe, possibly. We have to use a lot of those qualifiers with this story. Let me get out some dramatic music or maybe some sad music. No, let's go with the dramatic. I like the dramatic. That shit's hilarious. Floyd Mayweather on Instagram saying, now that I'm back on U.S. soil after a long and disappointing trip to Tokyo, I don't have the time to address you, my fans, and the media in regards to the upcoming event on December 31st that was recently announced. First and foremost, I wanted to be clear that I, Floyd Mayweather, never agreed to an official bout with Tenshin Nasukawa. In fact, in parentheses, with all due respect, I have never heard of him until this recent trip to Japan. Ultimately, I asked to participate in a 9-minute exhibition of 3 rounds with an opponent selected by Rising Fighting Federation. What I was originally informed by Brent Johnson of One Entertainment was that this was to be an exhibition put on for a small group of wealthy spectators for a large fee. This exhibition was previously arranged as a, in quotes, special bout, purely for entertainment purposes with no intentions of being represented as an official fight card, nor televised worldwide. Once I arrived to the press conference, my team and I were completely derailed by the new direction this event was going, and we should have put a stop to it immediately. I want to sincerely apologize to my fans for the very misleading information that was announced during this press conference, and I can assure you that I too was completely blindsided by the arrangements that was being made without my consent nor approval. For the sake of the several fans and attendees that flew over in from all parts of the world to attend this past press conference, I was hesitant to create a huge disturbance by combating what was being said, and for that I am truly sorry. I'm a retired boxer that earned an unprecedented amount of money globally for appearances, speaking engagements, and occasional small exhibitions. That is it. No hashtags. Let's get to whatever the fuck that was. Look, there's a lot of different angles to look at. One, for the most obvious example, is that Japanese MMA, boxing, whatever you want to use, the specific exec we're talking about, Sakigabara, who was present for this press conference. He was the one in between them. He was in charge of Pride FC. He's in charge of Ryzen FF. He did this almost exact thing with Mike Tyson and Bob Sapp. He brought Mike Tyson into a Pride ring to challenge Bob Sapp for some sort of exhibition fight back in like 2002, 2001, back when Mike Tyson had hair. That's how long ago this shit was, okay? Back when he had hair, okay? So this has been a tried and true test. I mean, very few of these situations happen. Like, for example, Ali Inoki. Those situations happen far less than the ones we have of Tyson, Bob Sapp, Mayweather, Tenshin Nasukawa. So is this just another Sakigabara, PR stunt like he did with Pride with Mike Tyson and the gang, or is it something different? I don't know. I think that's for one, it's just the obvious, probably the easiest answer for the situation is that it's just Japanese combat sports being Japanese combat sports. They do this shit all the time, and this is nothing really new. However, to play a little bit of conspiracy here.
Are you off your tits? Have you been smoking something?
Maybe, Eddie. I don't know. Floyd was going on in the press conference about how he wanted to put on a show for the Japanese public. Like, at no point did he ever... Like, I watched the press conference back, unfortunately, which I highly, highly regret. But at no point did he ever, let off any, subliminal stuff about how this was going. There's nothing you can really, look into from what he said that makes you go, this doesn't seem likely. It adds, or nothing that he said in the press conference sort of adds in sort of some sort of subliminal way to anything he's saying in this IG post. Could it just be another Floyd Mayweather PR stunt in a way, or is it just the combination of, we have Floyd Mayweather, who's one of the most notorious people when it comes to sort of pulling the rug out of media and fans, and Japanese combat sports, which is also known for pulling the rug out of media and fans. Is just the combination of the two. That seems also likely in some sort of fashion. I've also heard, maybe jokingly, of course, that Floyd Mayweather is a little bit shook. He's maybe a shook one. Maybe the Yakuza got to him. Maybe the highlight reels of Tenshin Nasukawa got to him. I don't know. It's just I don't think that's likely, either of those scenarios. I think they're funny. But I think it's more likely that this is just a PR stunt from the beginning. And, for example, we have the two biggest, probably, practitioners of PR stunts in all of combat sports, in Saki Gabara and Floyd Mayweather. I think that's probably much more valid than the Yakuza got him shook or Tenshin Nasukawa's highlight reels have him shook. No offense to Tenshin. I think he's awesome. He's a prodigy. But there's no way Floyd was going to let him kick him. Let's be fucking honest about that one. But yes, that is it for boxing topics of the day. I'm going to go back to Gary. If anyone else wants to call in, 323-870-4051. Press 1 to get in the queue. For our international, email me, mixedcombatradio@gmail.com. That link is below in the description or on the screen to get a free international permanent call-in link. We do also have our MMA portion of the show to get to as well. So after Gary, we do have the UFC Fight Night, Chan Sung Jung, and Yair Rodriguez. And, of course, the rest of the news, UFC flyweight division being officially dissolved. Sorry, air quotes, officially dissolved, allegedly, but we all know it is. Jose Torres coming out, good friend of the show right there. Coming out and saying that he was cut and part of the first wave of cuts for the flyweight division, which by the end of 2018 we'll see the end of the division, which is just sad. But anyways, we're going to go to Gary, get his sort of predictions for the boxing cards, and obviously to talk shit about Floyd Mayweather, of course. Gary, round 2 with you.
Yeah. So you want to start with the Usyk fight?
Sure, let's go with that.
I don't think I've never been that high on Ricky Conlon. I just don't think Bellew is that good. And I think he's had a good career for a guy with a mediocre skill set, but I don't think this is even competitive. I got a 120 to 108. I don't think it's going to be close for Usyk. Like a lot of times you say, okay, 1 round, 119, 109, just for showing up, you get 1 round for showing up. I don't even think Bellew's going to get that. I think this is going to be more one-sided than the Garcia fight. I mean, I picked Bellew to beat Wilder and AJ, so obviously I picked him to beat Bellew. But it's the only fight left for Usyk at cruiserweight, so I have no problem with the fight. I just don't think it's going to be close at all.
I agree.
And then on Mayweather, I'm glad you said that the fight wasn't canceled because I noticed that too. I think there's too much money for this not to happen. I just think Mayweather's trying to use this as some type of leverage to get the kicking out or to get more money or something, right? Because like, if someone was going to pay you $88 million to have a 9-minute exhibition, you would take it. Like, you figure out a way to make that work, right?
Yes.
He'll figure out. I would be shocked if he doesn't fight that Japanese guy, Tenshin, on December 31st. I think this is just a leverage. He probably didn't expect there to be kicking, which I think they said that they hadn't ironed out all the rules of the fight, and then he saw that he doesn't want that.
Very quickly to add to that, Gary, and it's just a rumor. I saw somebody, I forget who it was, but it was somebody I trust. They had like a screenshot of it, looked like an official press release of the rules of the exhibition fight, and in the rules it said kicking was allowed. And it seemed, and in my mind, I don't know if it was true in terms of timing, but it seemed like right after that, literally right after I saw that post, Mayweather posted. And
yeah, I saw that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No.
Go ahead.
No, you go, Gary. It's okay.
I saw that press release too, and I was going to ask you when that press release came out, if there was a date on that, because I saw that too, and then I heard it was canceled.
I didn't see a date on it, but I saw that post before I saw Mayweather's post. That doesn't mean it was posted before, but I'm just saying what from I saw, it was posted before.
Yeah, I was in the same kind of boat where I saw both things like within a couple of minutes of each other. Mm-hmm. That's why I was wondering like what came out first. Yeah, I just think there's too much money involved not to make it happen, right? And I also think it's a play to build his star up in Asia so that when he does rematch with Pacquiao, which I think will happen if Pacquiao beats Broner, then his name is that much bigger in Asia, and that's a possible market to put the fight too. Because Pacquiao's been fighting over in Asia a couple of times. So this is a chance for Mayweather to reestablish and make his name even bigger over in the Asian market, which is what I thought this was the whole time, that this was just to hype his name up before a rematch with Pacquiao in Asia.
I see this as just being just a plain tune-up or stay busy like exhibition fight for Mayweather for the Pacquiao fight. I don't really see it as a way to sort of leverage Asian fan base into the matchup. I think they're already invested. Like Japanese combat sports fans, they're fans of Pacquiao, in my opinion. They don't need a Tenshin Nasukawa fight for Mayweather to be invested in Mayweather versus Pacquiao Part 2. I don't see that. And I just see this. I just see this like you said in the very beginning. It's $88 million allegedly for an exhibition fight. That alone is reason to get out of your bed.
No, I agree, and that's why I think the fight will get made either way. I just thought, like, the fact that he was fighting the Japanese guy over there, I mean, there's a lot of money over there. Hong Kong, Japan, Singapore. I mean, maybe they could offer a bigger fight fee than Vegas, and maybe for a Pacquiao-Mayweather fight, maybe there's more money over there, and Mayweather saw that as an opportunity. I don't know. I'm just spitballing. That's just a guess.
I think... No, I'll put it this way, Gary. I think long-term, obviously Asian markets are going to become much more dominant, not only in boxing, but just world economics. Like, that's just a factor. Like, West and East is far less separated than it once was for obvious reasons, like technology and international trade. You know, like, that's all obvious. Boxing is a microcosm of that. So I think eventually, like you said, and we're seeing this already, like, I know you don't pay attention to MMA, but one championship, which is picked up Demetrius Johnson from the UFC, Eddie Alvarez from the UFC, they have a huge influx of investor money. They're making a huge stamp in the market. And to be honest, like Asian markets have always had a lot of money in combat sports. However, it's always been very separated from U.S. media, UK media. That's the issue. People like Dan Rayfield, Lance Pugmire, Kevin Iole, like the biggies, they don't fly over to Japan to cover any sort of Japanese boxing. They just don't. There's so little media presence over there that gets over to here. That, I think, is always the big issue, at least for us, as to why it's sort of new. Like this idea that you're bringing up, I think, is valid. I think in 20, 30 years from now, we're going to see that fulfilled where a lot more big fights head up in Asia, because there's just a lot of money there. Just like eventually, even though I'm not going to like it, Saudi Arabia is going to get a lot more boxing fights. They are. They have the money to spend. They like to spend on that sort of sporting propaganda. They're going to get more boxing fights. The more boxing Super Series went there, that was sort of the seal has been broken for boxing. And it has been for a long time with MMA because the UFC went there like a decade ago.
I agree 100%. That's all I got today, Matt. Thanks for the time.
Thank you, Gary. Always enjoy your calls. Going to move into the MMA topics. And actually quickly just sort of like wrap up my thoughts on that sort of last point that me and Gary are talking about. Like if you are and again, my metrics show 75% of you are U.S. listeners, right? You're from the U.S. The other 25%, you're from the U.K. Sorry, 24%. Another 1%, you're divvied up everywhere else. Shout out to those 1%. People that are like in Australia and like Poland and like those random countries. Shout out to you guys. But my mainly U.S. and U.K. audience, the very Western audience, if you are not aware of maybe very recent history, like again, 20 years or so at most, of Japanese combat sports, go and do a little bit of history on it. Even if you're like Gary, for example, or others who are predominantly one sport, they only watch boxing for combat sports. They don't watch MMA, kickboxing, nothing like that. Pro wrestling, that's not their thing. Only boxing, or vice versa to any of them. Go and research a little bit about the other, because there is some obvious trends, characteristics that bleed over from all combat sports. How the mechanisms of combat sports across the board are relatively the same. Who regulates it, who sanctions it, the players involved, the people behind the scenes, so the power brokers. It's a lot of bleed over. TV execs, everyone, there's a ton of it, especially in Japanese and Asian combat sports. Again, that article that's in the description of yesterday's show, go and read that article by Jonathan Snowden if you haven't. It's a long read. I know it is. I know it's a little bit tough because nowadays we want to see, a little 3-minute video on YouTube and collect our news and be gone. This article is not for that, but it's good. There's a reason for that. Similar to why my show is not really broken up into small segments. I don't have little 3-minute clips like other YouTube channels for boxing channels. I'm not that guy. No, you have to sit here and wait the hour and a half, 2 hours, and collect all of the substance that I'm spewing right here, because it's valid to get the whole of it. The whole picture is important, and especially with combat sports. If you're a boxing fan, to not understand half of the world and how it runs economically, how it runs in terms of regulation, I think is just pure ignorance. And there is a lot of importance and validity to go back and understand even recent history, because you will directly understand why situations are happening today. For example, why would Triple G ignore Canelo, Andrade, Jacobs over at DAZN for a possible Maeda fight at Tokyo? Obviously before the Brandt loss. It's because of the money. It's because of the money that Maeda represents. And if you don't understand Japanese combat sports and how it runs, how it operates, and how guys can massively become mega stars in such an exponential rate, then I think you would never understand that news story. But it's relevant. It is. And stories that talk about Pride FC back in the day in the mid-2000s, early 2000s, are directly relatable to stories about Ryota Maeda and Inoue and Kenshiro and Koji Tanaka. It's directly relevant. That's my little soapbox rant for the day. Digressing, obviously, to our UFC and MMA topics of the day. UFC Fight Night 139. As we are winding down the Fox era, it's just sad, man. RIP the Fox era. Obviously, this main event, Chan Sung Jung, the Korean Zombie versus Yair Rodriguez, is an injury replacement. It was supposed to be Frankie Edgar versus Chan Sung Jung, a fight that I was highly interested in. I'm still interested in this one, don't get me wrong. Rodriguez is a great talent, great prospect, but he's also a guy that's been a little bit up and down recently. And Chan Sung Jung, even though he's been highly inactive recently, is, from what we know, a level above Rodriguez at this point. Maybe we find out Chan Sung Jung is shot and faded after years of inactivity and injury. Maybe we find out Rodriguez clearly just isn't at this level. But we definitely going to find out something about either guy here. I'm hesitantly picking Chan Sung Jung purely due to his grappling skills. Rodriguez, even though he gets flashy at times with his submissions and in his ability to scramble into grappling offense, Chan Sung Jung, I'm not going to say like pioneered like the modern version of that, but he kind of did. And I think if we see any sort of scrambles, any sort of prolonged period of these guys grappling, I think Sung Jung is going to get a clear submission here, in my opinion, within probably 3 rounds. If Rodriguez can keep this on the feet, I think it's highly interesting from a level of, how good is Rodriguez's stand-up? Because Chan Sung Jung, while not being, I think, the most technically fundamental boxer in the world, he's a brawler. He's a guy that's going to get in your face, throw a lot of punches, a lot of volume, going to work the body, and he's hard to deal with. If Rodriguez can keep this at distance, I think it's a fight that he can potentially win, but that's a tough fight. Again, I'm picking Korean Zombie by submission within 3 rounds. I think he is just overall the higher caliber fighter in this matchup. In the co-main event, Donald Cerrone, Cowboy Cerrone versus Mike Perry, former teammates, now bitter enemies. Though they did post, it was funny, they did post a little picture. Cowboy was all in his cowboy outfit, right? And Mike Perry, I think, had a Laker hat on. May have had Ray-Bans. He had, like, the button up, like, all the way up, looking straight out L.A. I liked it. And Cerrone said in the caption, like, your favorite Red Dead Redemption 2 character meets your favorite Grand Theft Auto 5 character. And that was just fun. As a gamer, like, salute Cerrone. That was funny. This matchup, though, again, sort of similar in some ways to the main event, though a little bit different. Cerrone needs to keep this fight at length, at range, work his jab, work his superior kickboxing, or turn this into a wrestling, grappling exchange throughout. Make Mike Perry tire out. Mike Perry has a history of bad cardio. He's a guy that just enjoys the nightlife, and I think we're always going to see cardio issues because of that. If Mike Perry, though, can get on the inside, really start unloading combinations in that first round and a half, I see Mike Perry potentially knocking out Cerrone in really devastating fashion. However, if it goes beyond that round and a half, I can see Cerrone winning it. I really do. This is going to be a fight that I think is all action. It's going to be fun. Again, Mike Perry needs to get on the inside and catch Don Cerrone mid-combination when Cerrone gets a little bit too wide with his hooks. And plus, his jabs on the inside are just ineffective. Like, Cerrone does a really bad job of being able to, in mid-combination, shift the distance of his punches, if that makes sense. To go from a jab to a short counter hook when a guy slips your jab and now is right in front of you, Cerrone has sort of always struggled with that mid-combination, mid-fight adaptability, which, to be honest, is extremely hard. Like that takes elite talent to be able to change up the range and pace of your shot mid-combination in reaction and counter to what your opponent is doing. That's high-level stuff, especially in MMA, let's be honest. So Mike Perry has to do far less. His sort of technical skill he needs to win this fight is far less, in my opinion. He just needs to get in on the inside, slip that jab, and throw his really hard overhand right and really hard left hook. He does that consistently, and enough times, I think he will eventually get Cerrone out of there in the 3 rounds. Close fight. I'm probably picking Mike Perry slightly, but again, if Don Cerrone comes out here and beats Mike Perry, it's because Don Cerrone is just more skilled. He's able to take Mike Perry to deep waters and really drown him there. And the next fight, Raquel Pennington versus Jermaine Aroname, former UFC featherweight champion, who is now back at bantamweight after vacating or getting her belt stripped and that whole fiasco. She should win this one, even though I think we sort of disrespect JDR in some fashion, obviously for a title reign and seemingly ducking of Chris Cyborg. She is still a high-level kickboxer and Muay Thai fighter that transitioned to MMA. Raquel Pennington is, no disrespect, but not that skilled, kind of a journeyman in a lot of ways, and quite hittable. And I think JDR is going to be able to come in here and really tear her up and really probably finish her within 2 rounds. Though if not, it's going to be a brutal 3 rounds, let's be honest. It's unfortunate I have to announce that the Ray Borg, Joseph Benavidez fight is off. It's no longer on this card. And along with that, basically the rest of what I wanted to talk about when it comes to this card. Beneil Dariush is on the card. What else? Who else? Joseph Morales. That's about it. Yeah, nothing much. Chaz Skelly, not a lot of fights here on the card except for probably those top 2, top 3, especially with the Ray Borg Joseph Benavidez fight falling out. But to move on from that to the UFC flyweight division news, sad, man. It's just sad. Sad. Flow Combat reporting breaking. We're hearing the UFC's men's flyweight division is 100% being dissolved, likely done by the end of the year. The kicker, not all flyweights are being asked to move up to bantamweight. They're just getting cut. Unreal. We'll update you as we receive more info. To add to this, Jose Torres has come on Twitter or social media and talked about it. We're going to play this little clip from him and in his words exactly.
So since Flow Combat publicly announced it, they're 100% right. The flyweight division is going. I did kind of call it. Sadly, because I called it and because I was publicly talking about it first, I probably was, because of that, first in the chopping block. So sadly, I am not a UFC fighter anymore. I am a free agent. It's part of the sport. This stuff happens, and just, again, sadly, we didn't pick up enough fan base for the UFC. I appreciate every opportunity I was given. Sadly, again, 29 days, 2 fights, 54 pounds to prepare for my last 2 opponents, given my last fight wasn't the best, and I won my first one by a lucky knockout, so I was on the chop block because of it. So, who wants to sign me? I'm looking for a fight. But until then, I'm doing my thing moving forward, and again, flyweights that are not moving up to bantamweight are not getting allowed, like myself. Keep doing your thing, head up, and let's see where the world takes us from there. We got to put on a show.
So it seems all but set in stone, obviously, without the UFC saying it. The UFC flyweight division is being dissolved. Demetrius Johnson obviously has moved on to one championship. We're going to talk about some news with him as well in a second. It's going to be interesting to see who sort of stays on, who moves up, who they just cut. Obviously, for other promotions like One Championship, Bellator, Combat That's Americas, maybe even the old throwback Tachi Palace fighting championship when they used to have sort of the best flyweights in the world at the time with Ian McCall and the likes. It's going to be interesting to see where sort of the best flyweights go. Do they follow Demetrius Johnson to one? That seems likely. If I'm a Jose Torres, if I'm other guys out there that start getting cut, I'm looking for Demetrius Johnson. Because regardless of what, the very marginal amount that maybe Bellator or Combatas might offer you, Demetrius Johnson's a legacy fight still. And it looks like Henry Cejudo is moving up to fight TJ Dillashaw with less and less leverage in the negotiation table, let's be honest. Just interesting news overall. And speaking on Demetrius Johnson, there's a couple news stories about him. One announces flyweight and lightweight tournaments featuring Demetrius Johnson and Eddie Alvarez. I love that move. Instantly sort of get these guys into matchups, get these guys into potential matchups to look at that we, the hardcore fans, can start sort of analyzing and getting into. And plus, hardcore fans love tournaments. We just do. Let's be completely honest. And plus, putting your 2 biggest new signees in those tournaments makes complete sense. That seems quite obvious. Attached to that news, One Championship has announced it is diving into esports. Per the release, One Championship plans to invest up to $50 million alongside other key partners into One Esports. Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson, who was obviously formerly sponsored by Xbox before the UFC brutally took away the opportunity, and has obviously gone on to make a pretty good niche Twitch stream following, has been named Chief Brand Ambassador. Salute to Demetrius Johnson. Obviously getting the bag, obviously being a centerpiece going forward for One Championship as he deserves. And let's be honest, One Championship in the matter of a week did a move that the UFC could have done at any point in its entirety, and they don't. One Championship doesn't even have a fucking game, and they're getting into esports. The UFC has a game by a big AAA fucking maker in EA. Like, there's no reason as to why the UFC should have not done this. Come on, man. Like, it's ridiculous. You could have tapped into a young demographic alongside your longest reigning champion in company history and also one of the best fighters of all time. The disrespect is crazy, man. I can't believe it. Talking about I can't believe it. Paulo Borrachino Costa is injured, out of the planned January fight with Yoel Romero. This is just a sad day, man. Sad day. It was a happy day at first, now it's a sad day. Yoel Romero is now called out Anderson Silva. I don't like that matchup. I've heard rumors, I think it was from Gary Killian, I think it was his name. A reporter out of, I think it was Flow Combat. Sorry if I get that wrong. He reported that he heard a rumor that they were trying to make Adesanya versus Borrachino, Paulo Costa next. I think that's awful matchups. Put Adesanya versus Anderson Silva, trust me, and rebook Paulo Borrachino Costa versus Yoel Romero, or find somebody else. Otherwise, I am not interested in it. Put Jared Cannonier in there, late notice for Yoel Romero. Somebody that is not Anderson Silva. He's going to get his head torn off in that third round for nothing, in my opinion. Like, there's no passing the torch in a way in that matchup. And I think with Adesanya, there is that. Just being honest. There's an angle there completely that you can sort of go to and completely exploit, let's be honest, as a promoter. Other than that, ladies and gentlemen, it seems like that is it for today. Been a great show. Obviously, leave a comment below what you thought about it, your thoughts about Floyd Mayweather, Tenshin Nasukawa fight being off, Usyk versus Bellew, who wins it, UFC Fight Night 139, give your predictions, the news of the day, UFC Flyweight division being dissolved, Mikey Garcia versus Earl Spence being at AT&T Dallas Cowboys Stadium. Crazy world we live in combat sports. But make sure you hit that like button on the way out. Share the show. Subscribe if you listen on podcasts. Drop that review. I've had a review since that 1-star. And by the way, I know some of you remember that 1-star review when I read it out here on the air. He went back in and edited the review because of us making fun of it. I just want to say that's funny. Salute to that guy. Everyone have a great day on this Wednesday, hump day. And I'll be back tomorrow, same time as always, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, on YouTube, Podcast Forum, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, etc. I'm Matt, the Hipster Hunter. Hipsters here, haters beware. Peace.
I want smoke.
But if you wanna find me, please just send me location. Send me location.
Come on, guys. It's normal.
I'm Phil. I'm very Phil.
That's fucking illegal.